I'd like to welcome everybody to the June 17th ITalk meeting. Thanks staff for putting this together in trying times. We're getting better as we go along. And thank everybody on the phone or who's logged on to the webinar for joining us. Welcome. First order of business is to take the roll, see if we have a quorum. So Tessa, can you go ahead and take the roll, please?
Yes, you do have a quorum of your members. Stuart Halpern is not present, but he will be arriving late.
All others are present. All right, thank you. We do have a slightly new process as this whole webinar thing develops. So I'd ask Ariana to go over some of the things, the basic things, and maybe highlight the things that have changed. Ariana?
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair. So I'd like to update ITalk members and the public on our new process for both member and public comments. Primary members will be using their cameras and we will take live public comments. Members are asked to turn on their cameras when they have a comment or a question, and then Vice Chair Penny will recognize you. And as noted on the cover page of today's meeting agenda, in addition to emailed comments, the public may also provide live comments during today's meeting. And in order to provide live comments, they must register for the GoToMeeting webinar on the link provided on the cover page of the agenda. Join the meeting by clicking on the Join Webinar link provided in the confirmation email that you will receive upon registering. And then when public comments are called for on an item, click on the raise hand icon in the GoToWebinar control panel, which is on the top right of the screen. You will be called on by the name you registered with and may provide comments for the allotted time. There is no need to mute your microphone. The organizers will unmute you when you are called on. And the instructions for providing live comments are also at the bottom of the cover page of today's meeting agenda, and that can be accessed from the homepage of SANDAG's website at www.sandag.org. All comments, whether emailed or live, will be made a part of today's meeting record. And Amberlynn Griffin, SANDAG Legal Counsel, and I are available to answer questions on this if you have any.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Ariana. That takes us to the first item on the agenda, which is the approval of the minutes from the last meeting. Have all of the committee members had an opportunity to review the minutes? And are there any comments? I see Sunny has a comment or a question. Sunny, go ahead.
I don't have a comment, just was going to move to approve.
We have a motion to approve the minutes. Do we have a second?
Brad, seconds.
Thank you, committee member Barnum. All right, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Vice Chair, this is Tessa. We need to do a roll call vote.
All right, so let me back up. Will I do the roll call or will you?
I do the roll call vote.
If you could please do the roll call.
But first, sir, we need to see if there are any public comments, any hands raised.
On the minutes. Good call, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Do we have any public comments on item number 1?
And I do not see any hands raised.
Thank you. Call for the vote.
Thank you. Vice Chair Kenny.
Approved.
Mr. Barnum.
Aye.
Justin Fuller.
Approve.
Stuart Halpern is absent. Les Hopper.
Unmute yourself, Les.
Oh, there we go. Okay, I approve.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Sunny House.
Aye.
Item 1 passes with those members present. 1 member.
All right, so item number 2 is public comment on any item that is not on the agenda. So do we have any speaker slips currently for any items not on the agenda? That would be for the clerk.
I do not see any hands raised.
Okay. All right, so with no public comment, we'll move on to the consent calendar. All right, checking my notes. Item number 2. Well, before we move on to the consent calendar, let's go ahead and take a minute to welcome our newest member, Les Hopper. I've known Les for years. He has decades of experience in both public works engineering and in private development. He's got a solid record of volunteering for other engineering organizations. We're lucky to have him. So with that, Les, let me put you on the spot. Do you want to take a minute and give a little synopsis of your background?
Sure, and thank you. That was a really nice introduction and so nice to see you. Yeah, as Michael just said, I've been around for almost 40 years and have done everything from lots of bike path work to alternative delivery and public work projects. I worked at Caltrans for a while, so know the community. I'm just at a point, you know, after all these years where I was really looking at some other ways to give back. And when Kai Raymer told me that he was reaching the end of his term, I thought this would just be a great opportunity to get involved and help out. So I'm really excited to be a part of this, and thanks for having me.
All right, Les, welcome. Are there any comments from any of the other committee members? All right, well, hearing none, we'll move on to item number 3, which is the director's report. So Hassan, welcome.
Mr. Vice Chair, Hassan just texted me and he's not able to provide the comments, but he asked me to provide those on his behalf. And if that's okay with you, I can do that.
No, that's fine. He's a busy man. Jose, go ahead.
All right. So there's a number of items that Hassan wanted to cover. The Sandag final budget, a COVID-19 report that was or is being prepared with a focus on the Black and Hispanic communities, a state and federal legislative update, also an update on the Central Mobility Hub, the East Otay Mesa border crossing, and the regional plan. So I'll be covering those items. So later in the meeting, you'll be hearing more from Michelle Smith about the proposed, or excuse me, the final budget for fiscal year 21. But let me just give you a quick overview. So this past Friday, the Sandag board approved the fiscal year 21 final budget. The final budget totals $1.18 billion and includes $775 million in projected spending on capital improvements. Most of these capital projects are part of the TransNet program of projects. The budget also includes $46 million for the planning program and almost $63 million for regional operations. Based on the economic crisis caused by the pandemic, we have revised the funding status for sales tax and other revenues, and we're projecting a 13% drop in revenues, as you heard at your last ITAC meeting. From mid-May until the board approval last week, the budget did increase by 2.5% due to an increase in outside funding, which includes the following projects. So the California Transportation Commission allocated $27.4 million for the SR 11 and Otay Mesa East port of entry. The Del Mar Bluffs stabilization project was awarded $11.6 million from the Federal Railroad Administration, and that occurred in May. And then $4.9 million from the Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Program, which happened in April. There was $13 million for coming from the UC San Diego as part of the Midcoast Trolley improvements, and this was part of a construction cooperative agreement with, as I mentioned, UC San Diego. We had several draft budget presentations to the board of directors. There were a lot of good questions, good discussion. A lot of the credit for getting the budget approved goes to our CFO, Andre Dujan, for methodically working through all of the questions and the issues. But it is a time of uncertainty, so we will continue to watch the economic crisis and what effect it may have in the long term. So we will be going back to the board on a quarterly basis with any revisions as required. So moving on to the special SANDAG report on the COVID impact in Black and Hispanic communities. Our chief economist, Ray Major, and his team will issue a report this week showing the extraordinary impact the pandemic and economic crisis has had on our Black and Hispanic communities. We believe it will be instrumental in helping our elected leaders shape policies and programs to help the communities in need. Here's just a few of the things that we're finding out. When compared to the white population, Black and Hispanic populations are more than 4 times as likely to live in areas that have been impacted by COVID-19 and unemployment. More than 2/3 of the region's Black and Hispanic populations reside in zip codes with higher than average unemployment rates. And approximately half of Black and Hispanic residents live in zip codes with higher than average COVID-19 cases. Moving on to the state and federal legislative update, the state legislature on Monday passed, or excuse me, a week ago, passed $143 billion budget that relies on federal aid. This is not what the governor proposed, which was a budget that included $14 billion in cuts unless the federal aid was received. The legislature will continue to negotiate with the governor on the final version. From a transportation perspective, each of the proposals estimated reduction in fuel tax revenue of $1.8 billion through fiscal year 25. However, we continue to be advised that we should not expect to see a slowdown in project delivery in the very near term. In Washington, D.C., the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee released the text of its 5-year surface transportation reauthorization bill last week. The INVEST Act would provide nearly $500 billion over 5 years of investments in capital infrastructure for highways, transit, and rail projects. And it does include COVID-19 relief funding for states, cities, tribes, and transit agencies. It is scheduled for a markup today, and staff will be monitoring the proposal along with the Senate's version while continuing to advocate for the region's priorities. Moving on to the Central Mobility Hub, SANDAG staff continues its work with the United States Navy to develop the opportunity to include a Central Mobility Hub as part of the Navy redevelopment of its Navwar complex off of Pacific Highway in the Midway area of San Diego. Glad to report that AB 2731, authored by Assemblymember Todd Gloria, was officially unanimously passed by the Assembly last week and is on its way to the Senate. The bill clarifies and strengthens certain public participation provisions and government transparency in the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, process for a major transit and transportation facility. And this is really great news for our Central Mobility Hub project. Moving over to the border, construction work continues on State Route 11 and the Otay Mesa East projects. The SR 11 project is about 80 days ahead of schedule. Flags have been posted at the port of entry site that map out the facility footprint on the US side of the border. We're also expecting to open bids at the end of this month for the southbound SR 125 connector to westbound SR 905. And you may have heard prehistoric fossils were found at an excavation site near SR 11. Numerous fossils between 16 and 25 million years old were uncovered. So the team is working with the San Diego Natural History Museum to remove and preserve the fossils with minimal impacts to construction. And finally, on the regional plan is on schedule, and the draft will be ready later this spring, with the board set to consider it the following fall. Or in the fall, I should say. We expect to present the vision to a joint transportation and regional planning committee meeting on August 7th, followed a week later to the board of directors on August 14th. We're working with the board of directors, Chair Voss, on a site that will accommodate an in-person, socially distanced meeting. We're also considering hybrid in-person virtual meetings as well. And then just lastly, I wanted to cover the phased reopening of Sandig offices. So on June 5th, we began a phased reopening of the Sandig offices for employees in our downtown building and at the Toll Operations Center. Many of our directors began working from the office to prepare for the employees who, for productivity needs, returned to the office this week. We expect that many employees will continue to telework during this phased reopening. We have completed detailed policies and procedures to ensure the safety of staff and to follow all county and state health orders. We continue to plan for opening the office to the public and to working on having hybrid in-person and virtual meetings for you, our board, our policy advisory committee meetings, and our working group meetings. These hybrid meetings will not happen until mid-July at the earliest, and we will notify you and the chairs of all the committees with the protocols. So with that, Vice Chair Kenny, that concludes Hassan's report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Jose. And that concludes the director's report. Before we take questions from the committee, are there any members of the public who would like to speak on this issue? Clerk? Tessa?
I do not see any hands raised, Vice Chair Kenny.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's open it up to committee members. Are there committee members that have questions for Jose?
Mr. Chair.
Brad?
Jose, how are you doing?
Good, how are you?
What is that, a rake in the background?
Yes, it is. I'm working in my tool shed.
The regional plan on August 7th, is that includes the 5 big moves? Is that the whole
Yes, it would. Right.
thing that we've all been waiting for?
Correct.
Okay.
And that would be going
Thank you.
first to a joint meeting of the Transportation and Regional Planning Committees. That's August 7th, and then followed by a presentation to the board a week later.
Great, thank you.
Any other committee members? Well, 2 things, Jose. You mentioned funding for the Delmar Bluffs. Was any of that unexpected, or was that everything that you had?
I wouldn't say
planned
it's
on?
unexpected. I mean, it's something that we here at TransNet have been working on. We have been working to try to get additional funding from both the state and federal governments. So I would say that we're very happy to have received these funds. It does not fully fund the entire project, so we continue to try to get additional funds from both the state and federal governments. But it certainly helps us, to complete the next phase of work on the bluffs. But we need additional funding to complete all of the bluffs, so we'll continue to do that.
Well, good thing we got that money then.
Yep.
And congratulations on opening up the office. Hopefully that all goes smoothly, and we're at least half the staff, I think, in compliance with stage 2 would be able to go back.
ITALC meeting. So
Yeah,
ITALC's releasing a report, or Hassan's issuing a report next couple of weeks about the impact of the Latino and the Black community for COVID.
Is that is the
Right.
speaker?
Yeah, that's the report that Ray Major is finalizing.
For,
Can we identify the speaker?
This is production. I think that was somebody in a different meeting. Their mic was open. So can everybody please, if your mic is open and you're not presenting or speaking, turn off your mics. Thank you.
All right, so thank you again for the presentation, or for the report. We've had our committee comments. So with that, we'll receive and file the director's report and move on to the consent calendar.
All right, thank you.
Welcome, thank you. All right, so for the consent calendar, do we have any items? Well, again, is there any public comment for the consent calendar? Tessa?
Thank you, Vice Chair Kenny. I do not see any hands raised.
Okay, so close public comment on the consent calendar. For the committee members, are there any members of the committee who would like to pull an item for discussion off the consent calendar? Okay, well, seeing none, we'll take the consent calendar as a whole, as it is a all information items. We will simply accept those, receive and file those items, and move on to the next item. That would be item number 8, and I'd like to ask Mr. Needham to present the item.
Thank you, Vice Chair. So I just have a few updates since your last meeting. As you heard Jose mention, the board adopted the FY21 SANDAG program budget, and you'll hear a little bit more about that later on in your agenda. And then just an update on the vacancy on the ITALC, that current position for the real estate right-of-way land acquisition category is currently open, and that we are accepting applications until July 1st. So expect to hear more about that in the coming months. And then I also wanted to give you an update just on your performance audit that did kick off last week with the subcommittee for the performance audit meeting with your performance auditors. And so expect to hear a little bit more information in the coming months, including an entrance conference that has been scheduled for next week and interviews. The auditors have begun their information gathering, so you'll see more about that in the coming months as well. And with that, if you have questions, I'm here to help answer those.
Well, thank you very much. Do we have any questions from the public on that? Tessa?
Thank you. I do not see any hands raised.
Okay. Any questions for Ariana from the committee members? Ms. House?
I just wanted to find out if you have any candidates already for the open position. I know July is coming up pretty quickly.
Thank you for that. Yes, and Julie can help me out, but yes, we have seen some interest. So I would say somewhere around 2 or 3 perhaps that may possibly submit applications, but that's not to say that if you know of someone who may be interested, we definitely encourage you to pass on the information that's available on our website. We can send it to you so that you can forward that if you would. We would appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other committee members? Seeing none, this was also an information only item, so thank you for your presentation, and we'll receive and file that item and move on to item number 9.
Whoops. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Good morning, Les. And I'd like to welcome you to your first of many meetings to come. And for the benefit of our newest member, Les, I would like to provide a brief overview of this item. So in accordance with the TransNet Extension Ordinance, one of the responsibilities of ITALC is to prepare an annual report to the Board of Directors presenting both the results of its annual fiscal and compliance audits, and every 3 years its triennial performance audits. Typically, the work begins in January and concludes when the final report, which we are sharing today, is presented to the board in the June-July timeframe. At our last ITALC meeting in May, a suggestion was made by one of our committee members to include information on the status of the TransNet projects. In consideration of that suggestion, new text, including hyperlinks, have been added to this report. This new section allows readers to easily access important information, such as details on the status of numerous projects, including up-to-date information on the TransNet Major Corridor program projects. Other revisions to this report since the May ITALC meeting include the addition of new TransNet funding highlights on page 10. As you recall, previous versions had not included the new updated information yet, so that's now included. And we have actually, due to another suggestion by one of our committee members, have actually revamped the committee member listing, which now includes previous or just recently previous members of the ITALC, as well as newly appointed members. Today, we are asking for committee's approval of the fiscal year 2020 ITALC annual report And that concludes my report today, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, before we go to questions from the committee members, are there any members of the public who would like to comment on this item?
Thank you, Vice Chair Kenny. I do not see any raised hands.
All right, do we have any questions? Thank you. Do we have any questions from the committee members on this item? Ms. House.
Just a couple of comments. Page 11, there is a number listed as 1,127 million. Can we make that 1.127 billion? A little bit easier to read. Page 11.
Page 11. Sorry. Now, is that the top portion pie chart or the second?
It's under TransNet focuses resources on improving. It's in the text. Middle of the page, the second paragraph or second subtitle.
Okay.
And then at the end, first of all, I want to thank you all for including my suggestion of trying to get identify list of projects that have been completed. I think that really helps. And the information to go to is perfect. The only thing I noticed is on page 18, where you talk about completed projects. You've listed some examples of completed projects, which are mostly highway. So just wondering if we can add a couple of trolley projects or list at least a trolley project in there, because you have highway and BRT, which is still highway. So because we do so much more than just highway, just to make it a little bit more broader would be helpful.
And you said that was on page 18?
That's on page 18. In the first paragraph, you talk about the number of projects that have been completed, and you list some examples.
In the top paragraph. Yeah.
So that would be page 17, the very last page of the report, correct?
Well, on my copy is page 18 in the PDF that I have. It's just for more information, and it says since the start of TransNet ordinance. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Yeah, if you look at the footer for page 17, look at the center of the footer. You have a page 18. Anyway, might want to change that as well.
Yeah, just to make it a little bit more broad as far as all the projects we've done. We do so many different projects, so just makes it a little bit, neutral. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that something we can do and approve today, since we're on that topic? Is that we could? Okay, so get it. Les?
I didn't have a question specifically for this 2020 report, but Julie, you had mentioned the triennial report, and I was just curious where we were in that cycle, since I'm new to this and was wondering just what the status was.
So the triennial performance audit is just currently underway. We just started it the ending of last month. We have 3 members on the subcommittee which help direct the work. We're in the gathering information stage at this time. And then it will continue throughout the year. And you're going to hear updates moving forward in the coming months regarding the triennial performance audit. But it will conclude next year, 2021. And we'll then present the results and recommendations from our auditors at that time.
Got it. Thank you.
That's just a very brief, high level, information, but there's more to come.
I'm sure there is. Thanks.
And in a little foreshadowing, if I could ask, Dustin and I were on the subcommittee for the preparation of this. Dustin, how many hours did you spend in total effort on that subcommittee action? What do you think you did?
Referring to the the report that we have on the agenda right here, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, I would say 2 to 3 hours over the course of the past 4 months.
So it's a very important report, and there's a subcommittee formed to help shepherd this through our process. But the effort is largely done by staff sharing with us the things that they'd like to see and soliciting our advice. And Dustin's right. It's 2 or 3 hours worth of work for a committee member to sit on a subcommittee for a report like this. So for you new members, that was just a little foreshadowing. All right, so do we have any other comments from committee members? All right, hearing none, do we have a motion to approve or any motion on the item?
Mr. Chair,
Dustin?
I would move approval, including Ms. House additions to the report.
I would like to second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. We get the clerk to call for the vote.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I'd also like to confirm there were no public comments. I did not see any hands raised for this item.
Thank you for that. And I did not ask for any committee comments on the motion. Are there any members who'd like to comment on the motion itself? Let me kick it back to the clerk then, if you could call for the vote.
Thank you. Vice Chair Kenny.
Approve.
Brad Barnum.
Approve.
Dustin Fuller.
Approve.
Is Stewart here yet? I do not see Stewart. He is absent. Les Hopper.
Approve.
And Sunny House.
Approved.
Thank you. Item 9 passes unanimously with those members present, 1 absent.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank staff for their preparation of that report and work on it. It was a it's a nice looking report for sure. And my fellow committee members, Stuart, who didn't make it, and Dustin, that was appreciate your efforts as well. So with that, let's move on to the next item. Cut over to my notes here. Item number 10 is going to be a presentation by Julie again. So if we could ask Julie to go ahead and give us the presentation.
Thank you. So a vacancy on the State of the Commute Independent Analysis Subcommittee recently became available due to the departure of a former ITALC member. At the May ITALC meeting, the committee decided to delay the appointment of one voting member to serve on the subcommittee to allow newly selected ITALC members the opportunity to submit interest for appointment. The subcommittee's main purpose will be to provide an independent analysis of the data which informs the State of the Commute report. The subcommittee will meet in person approximately 2 to 3 times throughout the year, but may also expect to participate in internet-based meetings, receive communications by email, or be available by telephone for follow-up information. Today, the ITALC is asked to appoint one member to serve on its State of the Commute Independent Analysis Subcommittee. If there are any questions?
Julie, who's already on the committee?
Let's see, that would be yourself. It was, I'm sorry, Stuart, thank you. And then Greg, who previously left.
Right, so myself and Stuart are already committed, so we're looking for someone other than the two of us. So are there any members of the public who would like to comment on this item? Clerk?
Thank you, Vice Chair. I do not see any hands raised at this time.
All right, Tessa, thank you very much. All right, so back to committee. Do we have any volunteers? Any questions about what the effort entails or what the committee does? Les?
Mr. Vice Chair, given your clever foreshadowing on this, and Julie had sent a few emails to me, I like I said, I'd love to get involved, so I'd be happy to volunteer to join this one if nobody else is interested.
All right. Thank you, Les. Now, this is a good committee. It's a fun one, and you'll be good at it. So we have a volunteer. Anyone else interested? Hearing none, do we have a motion to, do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair?
Dustin?
Yes, I would move appointment of Mr. Hopper.
Have a motion, thank you. Do we have a second? Ms. House?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, if the clerk could call for the vote, please.
Item 10, Vice Chair Kenny,
Approve.
Brad Barnum,
Approve.
Thank you.
Justin Fuller,
Approve.
Stuart Halpern is absent. Les Hopper,
If it's within Robert's rules to approve myself, I do.
it is.
It is.
It is. And Sunny House.
Approved.
All right.
Thank you. Item
right.
10 passes unanimously with those members present.
Welcome, Les. Thank you for volunteering. We appreciate that. All right, let's move on to item number 11. I'd like to call on Sam and Jennifer to present if they're present. And for the benefit of the new members, if you could just introduce yourselves as well, I appreciate that.
Good morning. My name's Jennifer Farr. I'm the partner on the engagement from Davis Farr.
Hello, good morning. My name is Samuel Diche. I'm an associate accountant with Sandag. And this morning, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I said welcome.
Thank you. So good morning, everyone. So today is the final piece of the fiscal year 19 audit process. Jennifer Farr of Davis Farr LLP will walk you through the final steps. And then once she's done, then you'll come back to me, and then we'll come back from me for an action item, and then we will close this out. And with that, here's Jennifer.
Thank you. So now we are at the final stage of the process. I would like to briefly walk you through the steps of how we got here. Last June, the ITALC Audit Subcommittee was provided with the proposed procedures for their review. And then at the July ITALC meeting, those procedures were approved. The Davis Farr team scheduled and performed the procedures for the 24 agencies during the time period of September 2019 through December 2019. The draft reports were presented to you for your review on April 15th, along with the agencies that did not meet any of the requirements. On April 17th, the Regional Transportation Committee recommended approval to the Sandag Board of Directors for the agencies that did not meet those requirements. And on May 8th, the Sandag Board of Directors approved the request for agencies that did not meet the requirements. ITALC is now accepting the reports for purposes of release and issuance of the final reports. As a reminder, there were two findings in the fiscal year 2019 reports. One of them related to the exaction fees. The cities of Coronado, the city of Lemon Grove, and the city of National City did not consistently use the approved exaction fee of $2,483 from each newly constructed residential housing unit. The agencies are currently in the process of collecting additional amounts from the developers, and in the fiscal year 2020 procedures, we will follow up to ensure that they've remedied those issues. And then the second finding was related to NCTD not meeting the rail operator eligibility requirements. After NCTD requested approval for the exclusion of certain costs, the rail operator eligibility requirement is now met. And at this point, I will turn it back over to Sam to go over the final recommendation.
Thank you, Jennifer. So we do have an action item today. The ITALC is asked to accept the final fiscal year 2019 TransNet Fiscal and Compliance Audit Report as prepared by the independent audit firm, Davis Farr LLP, in accordance with the agreed upon procedures so the final audit report can be issued. And that concludes our report. Are there any questions?
Well, thank you very much, Sam and Jennifer. Very thorough presentation there. Before the committee takes it for discussion, are there any members of the public that would like to comment on this item? Can the clerk verify?
Thank you. I do not see any hands raised, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Tessa. All right, so are there any questions for the committee members for the presenters from the committee members? Well, it's a shame that Stuart's not here. Ariana, can we wait around for 20 minutes to see if Stuart rolls in at 10:30 like he said he was, or is that unfair to our presenters?
Well, it doesn't look like he's here yet. He did say 10:30 at the earliest, so it's up to the committee if you'd like to, postpone your action until after the next item. But I'm sure he would gladly, fill you in on any additional information you might need whenever he comes as well. So it's up to you.
You guys mind sticking around? He is our financial representative to the committee. So at 10:30, if he's here, we'll give him an opportunity to say anything, and then we'll take some action. If he doesn't show up by 10:30, we'll take it back to the committee. Do you mind waiting around for Stuart? You're kind. All right, we'll do that. Unless the committee has a different opinion, we'll just move on to the next item, and we'll hold this until Stuart gets here, or at least till Stuart says he's going to get here, and then we'll take it back to committee. Any comments from other committee members? All right, let's do that. Remind me to come back to that. Okay, let me go to item number 12. Let's move on to item number 12 and hold item 11 in abeyance. Is Michelle Smith here to present? For what it's worth, we're way ahead of the schedule, so there's that to consider too. So is Michelle here?
Yes, I'm here.
Welcome. Can you go ahead and present item number 12, please?
Absolutely. So good morning. My name is Michelle Smith, a Senior Project Control Analyst here at Sandag, and I'm here to present the final fiscal year 2021 annual budget update for the Capital TransNet Program of Projects, which includes major capital, goods movement, and regional bikeway programs. In addition, this year we are including the Comprehensive Multimodal Corridor Plans or Projects, or CMCPs, which are the new set of projects approved by the board in September of 2019 to initiate comprehensive planning on 12 high priority corridors throughout the region. These corridor plans will help to inform the decision-making process on several of the corridors identified in the TransNet Extension Ordinance Expenditure Plan. Normally, we bring the draft budget to ITALC for consideration in March. However, this year in March, the board requested that the draft budget be updated to incorporate revised revenue estimates due to the economic impact of COVID-19. The draft budget was approved by the board in May, and the final 21 budget was approved by the board on June 12th. A summary of budget changes which are included in the final fiscal year 2021 program budget are shown in attachment 1 of your report. The FY21 budget for the TransNet program consists of 68 active capital projects in various stages of development, ranging from environmental to construction, and also includes 12 CMCP projects and 23 projects that are pending closeout. Work continues to advance within the regional bikeway program. There are a total of 23 regional bike projects where we are proposing an increase to the budget in the amount of $60 million in order to fully fund 9 projects through construction and 3 projects through the design phase. The combination of these projects will add an additional 33 miles of bikeway. The fiscal year 21 total budget is $8.2 billion, which is an overall increase of $45.3 million, consisting of $9.4 million in TransNet dollars, $32 million of federal dollars, $2.4 million of state dollars, and $1.2 million of local funding. And the majority of these funds are expected to be spent within the next 3 years. A summary table of the current approved FY20 budget versus the FY21 budget can be found in attachment 1 to your item. This attachment provides the CIP number, the project name, the current FY20 approved budget, and the FY21 budget, and also shows if there are any changes with the increase or decrease to the overall budget. This attachment also notifies you of which phase the project is currently funded through. And for the CMCPs, these projects are studies within the specific corridor, so the status on attachment 1 is shown as NA. Attachment 2 shows the proposed milestones for the capital program and our plans to accomplish in FY21. Overall, there are 28 milestones in FY21 versus 24 milestones in FY20. Of the 28 milestones, 9 are related to the bikeway program, where there are 3 projects ready to advertise for construction and 1 will open to users, adding another 2.1 bikeway miles. That concludes my presentation, and I'm here for any questions. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much. Question for the clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
Thank you, Vice Chair. I do not see any hands raised at this time.
All right, thank you very much. We'll take it back to committee for discussion. Do you have any comments or questions from the committee members? Michelle, just very briefly, or maybe this question is more for Ariana, can you give me a 30-second explanation of how we're hearing an item that's already been to the board, since it happens very rarely, but it does, and we have some new committee members?
Yeah, so normally in March, oh, sorry, Ariana. We bring the draft budget to discussion and make any necessary changes before the final version. However, this year when the draft budget was taken to the board, due to the economic crisis of COVID-19, we were asked to actually change the draft budget in order for the draft to be approved before we can approve the final. And so since the draft budget was not approved until May, the final budget went June 12th, so there was no time in between them to bring the draft budget to the ITALC this time.
Okay, well, it does happen on occasion. I think we had a similar instance when we had to get something to the state legislature in a hurry, that the board heard it quickly. This is previous. So we still have an obligation to make sure that whatever action is proposed is consistent with TransNet, but in this particular instance has already been to the board. But in any case, is there any discussion about the item from the committee members? All right, well, hearing none, and that this is a discussion item, thank you for your presentation, and the committee will receive and file the item, and we will move on from there. All right, so we still have item, I'm sorry, was it item 11 that we need to take action on, need to consider taking action on? And I guess Stuart's not here, so I fell on my sword for no reason. If we could go ahead and go back to item 11. We had heard the item. We didn't have any public comment, and it was before the committee to discuss. Are there any comments from the committee members on item 11? Okay, so this is an action item. So having no discussion, do we have a motion to approve? Are we approving, or are we just recommending, approving, or just what is the action before us? I go back to it. Back to item 11.
This is Amber Lingerson, legal counsel. The action that's before the ITALC today for item number 11 is to accept the report.
The request is to accept. Thank you for the clarification. All right, do we have a motion to accept the item as submitted?
Mr.
Brad.
Chair, make the motion to accept the report.
All right, well, we have a motion to accept it. Do we have a second?
I would second that.
Thank you, Mr. Hopper. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion on the motion? No discussion on the motion. If the clerk could call for the vote then.
Thank you. On item 11, Vice Chair Kenny,
Approve.
Brad Barnum,
Approve.
Dustin Fuller,
Approve.
Stuart Halpern is absent. Les Hopper
Approve.
and Sunny House.
Approved.
Thank you. Item 11 passes unanimously with those members present, one member.
All right, well, thank you for that. Ariana, point of order, is there a discussion about the chair and the vice chair positions that I missed?
So that is on your consent agenda. We have an item listed, which is item number 7 on your consent agenda today. Annual selection process for the ITALC chair and vice chair. So that item provides an overview of the process for that annual selection of the chair and vice chair, which happens at your July ITALC meeting. We like to provide this report as an informational item this time of year so that members know that this is coming their way next month.
Okay, so I went through the consent calendar a little fast. All right, so next month there'll be some resolution to the chair and vice chair issue. All right, and can you tell me the date for our next meeting?
Yes, it is July 8th, 9:30 a.m., Wednesday, July 8th.
All right, so we have a date certain for our next meeting. Are there any closing comments from any of the committee members?
Mr. Chair, I have a question on the chair selection. Could you, Ariana, tell us who has been chair on the committee as far as current committee members?
Absolutely, yes. So most members, with the exception of the newest members, have already held both the vice chair and the chair position. Vice Chair Michael Kenny, as you know, he's the vice chair, so he has not yet served as chair. We've had one member who has served 2 years in a row, so that has occurred as well. So there's nothing in the bylaws that prevents that. But you know, newer members are encouraged also to throw their hat in. If you have an interest in serving, I would encourage you to, any of the members, to, you know, let the vice chair know. And, you know, you can certainly let me know as well. So, yeah.
Thank you.
These are positions that you could step into with very little experience on the committee itself. You're handheld pretty much by staff, and there is an additional meeting that they prep you for this meeting, but that's it. You know, so please consider that when you
All right.
When you think about yourself. That would be great. All right, Sunny, thank you. Any other issues or questions, comments from the committee members? All right, well, seeing none, we'll adjourn the meeting and reconvene in July. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good job, Michael. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
We will talk to you later.